Good morning and welcome back to Coffee with Toffees, guys and girls. Glad to have you here for round 2 of our Monday show, which is now our Tuesday show, as we had some massive tech issues yesterday that I was not prepared to deal with at 5 a.m. in the morning. But we're here bright and early. It's 4 a.m. EDT. Most of you fans who normally watch the show are nestled in bed. And you'll wake up to a wonderful podcast, I hope, and look forward to seeing you guys later this afternoon. For the rest of you joining us for the first time, glad to have you here. My name's Toffees. You can find me on Twitter at Toffees_Dota2. You can find the podcast on the SoundCloud over on Toffees. And of course, just so that those of you who are just joining us know, we're trying to keep the show advertising free, nice and grassroots. And if you want to support the show, you can go to our patreon.com/Toffees. Enough about me. Let's talk about our guest today. We have Jorian van der Heijden joining us today. That is Shiver, for those of you who don't know. Welcome and good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for having me.
No problem. I really appreciate you being here. I know it's maybe not as early for you over there in the Netherlands as it is for us here, but taking some time out before what I assume is going to be a long day of streaming is always appreciated. So
yeah, I am planning on streaming indeed.
Excellent. So we'll make sure we send everybody over there, guys, at the end of the show today so you can watch Shiver do some awesome marathon streaming, which we're actually going to talk about a little bit today in the show, what that's like. But before that, for those of you who don't know her, those of you who maybe tune into my podcast and don't know sort of the details of who Shiver is, we're going to give you a little mini bio. She's been playing Dota for a very long time, since WC3 back in the day. Now, I heard a rumor, I read an interview a while back ago that said that your sister got you into Warcraft 3 and that sort of sparked the love of Dota. Is that true?
Yeah, we had Frozen Throne and Warcraft 3, and we played fun games, and I believe my sister was the first one to actually play Aeon of Strife. And
Nice.
got us to play it too. And with us, I mean also the rest of my family.
That is awesome. Family gaming from the get-go. I wish I could get that to happen. And from there, you moved into World of Warcraft, as so many of us did. I know that you did some hardcore raiding for a while. I myself did that as well. I remember hunting boss killers, looking for the world first, all of that good stuff. And I have 2 questions for you. For those of you who, for those of us who used to play the MMOs. A, what do you think was the best X-Pack? And B, do you sometimes miss that hardcore raiding family feel?
First, B, absolutely. That's one of the things that would make me go back to World of Warcraft, and that also helps because I know I can't get that back anymore, so I can't go back.
Yeah.
But I think the most favorite expansion, I don't actually know what the name was anymore, but I found Sunwell. In terms of rating wise, I found Sunwell really nice, and Mount Ijal and Black Temple.
Yep.
Like, I guess it was the first expansion, but I don't know what its name was anymore.
The Burning Crusade, and I agree with
There we
you.
go.
It was
Yep.
the best. It was better than vanilla. It was the true pinnacle of raiding. So I'm with you. That's when I got into my hardcore career, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Those of you who don't, I feel bad for you. You are too young, and you missed out on the glory days of the MMO scene. That said, let's talk. So when you started out, for those of you who don't know, Shiver was doing a lot of streaming. Started out with streaming the MMO. That moved her into streaming other games, from what I understand. And then you got into your casting career almost on what in the articles I read, it seemed like almost a whim, where you were helping to produce a tournament and then said, hey, let's just talk about it on stream. Let's see if it's fun to cast it. And people liked that. Gozu took interest, and it sort of kept going from there. Is that about right?
Yeah, I never actually was streaming World of Warcraft, but I did stream Skyrim for a bit, which was the first time that I actually streamed, because I was the first one of my friends to get it, and they wanted to see the game.
Nice.
But yeah, that's how I got to casting. I just wanted to give more publicity to the tournament that I was organizing, and we figured might as well talk about it while we're at it.
Awesome, makes sense to me. Now, I found an old G Sports article from 2012. I'm going to go to it a couple of times during the show because I think it's great to kind of pull up these throwbacks. But in it, you said that you did that cast, your first cast, with a admin from the tournament. Do you remember that admin or who it was that you did that casting with the first time? Oh, that's unfortunate. That'd be fun. A little bit of a vintage throw. But she got started. She joined up with Gozu, and now look where she is today. She's the queen of what to watch. Every morning we get to jump on Reddit and see what games are going on, a feature that I always appreciate. So, that said, let's jump into the segments. It is a morning show. It's built around news. So we're going to talk a little bit about the Dota news, and then we'll come back and do a nice little spot with Shiva that I'm excited about. We don't do a ton of interviews on the show, but whenever we get a guest, we do like to give a little bit of time over to that. So we'll make sure we do that this morning. First bit of tournament news, and it's a big one. WEC. It's over. We have a winner, and the winner is Evil Geniuses. Now, some things to talk about with this tournament. One, the final round, the grand final had no Chinese teams in it. Kind of a massive upset in the sense of WEC, staple, biggest opener of the year, huge Chinese tournament. Kind of massive to see two Western teams go to the finals in an Eastern tournament, and that is actually pretty exciting for Western Dota especially, and I can speak for myself here that kind of North American Dota, which 2 years ago was, how do I politely say, not great, and has really emerged with EG and a couple of other teams like Navi US, so we're pretty excited about that. Long story short, EG won 2 best-of-3s back-to-back coming out of the losers bracket to take a game away from C9. At the end of the day, EG takes home $96,000 in prize money. C9 takes home $32,000. Cash, yes. Which is awesome. Yeah, they actually handed them the check, so it's not like a check's in the mail.
No, they handed them a suitcase of money.
Oh, that's right. I remember that picture. I should have pulled that one up. That's crazy. Anyway, so I hope they got armored escorts out of the airport. But that's pretty mind-blowing. So, but here's my thought about this one. C9 misses the finals again, and I'm going to pull up a little bit of list of C9's past tournament debut of showings in 2014. Cloud9 has finished 6 times in second place in 2014 with no #1 finishes. Is this sort of an always the bridesmaid, never the bride situation? I mean, these guys are great players, right? How do you think it affects them to always be almost there?
I think as a first LAN event after TI, this is a promising start. They changed their roster slightly.
True.
They play with a new player. I don't think they are going to be disappointed that they're not first, or at least, you know, at the events, probably, yes, they were disappointed that they didn't win the finals. But overall, I think they should be really proud. It can only, I think it will get better, even, so...
I do think, I think they're going to get better. I think they're going to improve. It's just one of those things that I really want to see them take their first place, because they're a great team. They've got some phenomenal players. It just feels like they're kind of can't get over this little hump, and I'm excited to see them because the tournament season this year, guys, is crazy how many tournaments are going to be going on, and we're going to be covering all of them start to finish. On Friday's show, by the way, we do a tournament wrap-up, so we make sure that you know where all the standings are in the big league-based tournaments like Star Ladder or EMC. That said, another tournament that ran this weekend that was a little bit smaller, garnered a lot of attention, though, for the size of the tournament, was the Girl Wars that was 6th through 7th of September. I know that you cast that, Shivar. The winner was Sexualis Felis, I believe is how you say it.
Yep.
And it was actually a pretty good tournament. I watched it in between, I'm going to say in between, my apologies, in between WEC events, but I liked the games. It was fun to see. It was a great publicity tournament, which is always nice to see, kind of an expansion of the scene itself. And now here's the deal, guys. Originally, when I asked Shiva to be on the show, I was going to get into this big thing about women in esports. Let's talk more about it. And then I realized a few things. First of all, this shouldn't be an issue. If we all play a game that's got cartoon characters in a virtual world where things like race, sex, and really pretty much any other alignment really shouldn't be relevant. So, what I want to say and what I want to ask Shiva here is, if you could say something to women thinking about getting into competitive Dota specifically, what would you say? In a nutshell, is there just something that you can tell them to maybe encourage them into the scene?
Well, overall, if you want to get into competitive Dota, be that male or female, there's a lot of different routes.
There you go.
For girls, there's extra routes because of for example, the community that I casted a tournament for last weekend. And I think it's just give it a go. That's all there is to it. And there can be barriers like for example, you might feel like if you're a girl, like you would not be respected in via the general routes, but then a community like Dota2Girls.com is a great way to try things out, and that's exactly what that tournament was for as well, just to get girls, like, there is a way to try out competitive gaming without being afraid of any kind of judgment that might come your way because you're a girl. And I'm not even saying that the judgment would be there, because you know, there's a lot of people that already have evolved and the judgment is no longer there, but there's still a lot of girls that are hesitant because it used to be there.
Absolutely. So do it. Get in there. And guys, if you're girls, anybody, if you're one of those people who hasn't evolved, come on in. The water's nice. We're waiting for you. So buck up, put away the jokes about sandwiches, and come to the game, because you know what? I get my butt kicked constantly by women in Dota and everyone else, and that is totally great to see. All right, so that is it. We're not going to talk too much about that. If you want to get in to discussions about women's and esports and you want to hear some good information on it, Shiva actually did a Q&A over on her stream. I think it was 2 days ago now. It's about an hour long. You can find it on Shiva. It's Shiva Gaming on Twitch, right? If I remember correctly. Yeah. So if you go over to twitch.tv Shiva Gaming, you can watch the highlight of that. It's a really great bit where she answers viewers' questions and just talks a little bit about the whole thing. So go check that out. It's a good piece. And now we will move on. A couple other tournaments happened this week, most predominantly the EMC, but we're going to do a big wrap up on that Friday. So I'm not going to go into that. And now we'll go into what I like to call the pro news segment. No big trades going on at the moment, but a couple of things did happen yesterday. First, and the reason this is in pro news we'll get to in a second, Wagamama had what can only be described as the most epic day of streaming I have seen in a very long time. He pulled in thousands of dollars in donations. More importantly, he pulled in one day, over 425 subs. That is mind-blowing. He also, and this is why it's relevant to the news segment, mentioned that he may be returning to pro play and is considering it. He also dropped the name Alliance in the conversation, so we're going to keep an eye on that for you guys as it develops, see if he chooses to talk a little more about it. My producer of this show, Snuggies, loves watching the stream, so he's always, the second we hear from him that something's up, we'll let you guys know. 425 subs, that's... How amazing would that be?
That's actually, that would double my amount of subscribers.
That would
so yeah, it's an insane amount, and I'm really happy for Waga. Obviously, it was a bit of a hype train, as for example, Reddit can get crazy sometimes. Yep. Twitch can get crazy as well. I believe I heard that there was one guy that was giving other people money so that they could subscribe to Waga as well. And I mean, to make a grown man cry on stream, you know, you have to you have to put in some effort. They definitely did that.
You have to.
But it's it's quite amazing. Like in general, I think a lot of people underestimate the effect that subscribers have on streamers, because it is like some people donate, and that's great, but subscribers is actually something that you can use as a stable form of income,
right,
while you can't really do that with donations or ad revenue, because you never know how much actually will come in. So yeah, it was great to see.
It was awesome to see. I think he said that he actually made more that day than he did all last year in terms of income. So he's a great guy, very friendly on the stream, very helpful. Glad to see that. Now, that leads us to the second part of Pro News, which was there was a lot of drama on Reddit that resulted right afterwards. It was a Waga versus Vlad sort of thing that went down. I don't get into drama details on the show and into the nitty-gritty, but I will just tell you this, that they basically argued back and forth, and then both men apologized. Literally, it was like, anger, anger, anger. You know what? I was wrong. And they both said sorry. They both moved on, unfortunately for Waga. He basically tweeted that you should go upvote my post saying sorry to Vlad. And that got him shadow banned on the forums. So we're waiting for him to get the shadow ban removed so that he can come back and talk to us on Reddit. Shadow ban's interesting. I don't know. Do you have any experience with shadow bans, Shiver?
Not really. Okay. I mean, obviously, I know that you shouldn't ask for upvotes ever, regardless of the situation. So right. I watch out with that, as I do make Reddit posts every day. But
right.
But
And
yeah.
you've never had problems with your Reddit post, right? Because there's no upvote
No.
request. Yeah, so as long
There's
as
no
you...
upvote request. It's not like the content is not anywhere else. Like the content is in the Reddit post.
Mhm.
Of course, you can click all the links that are in there, but you don't have to. So I don't actually ask for people to click my links. Like for example, for On Gamers, that was all links to their website. So yeah,
Good to know. So I think when I start putting my links
that
on,
don't have anything to do with that. Not
So-
yet, anyway. Let's hope it stays that way.
Yeah, I hope so. So I will change the way that I post the coffee show on on Reddit now that I understand your system. So thank you for the insight. That said, next piece of information, guys, is Loda did an AMA on Reddit, which was actually pretty good. And what I did is I summed up some of the best bits of information from that. He said that he knows who Ice Frog is and has met him in person. Apparently, all the pros get to do that. I know that you got to go to TI, Shivar. Did you get a chance to meet Ice Frog? Do you know the secret identity, or are you still in the dark with the rest of us?
I met Ice Frog at TI2.
Ooh. Now,
So it's very early on in my career, but I haven't seen him since. So
so it's a he. That's great. Does he make you sign any paperwork that says you're not going to tell people who I am? Because that'd be pretty... fair enough. So the mystery will continue. I'm not going to ask because, honestly, whether or not we actually know, I think it's hilarious when I tell friends who don't play Dota that there's a mysterious overlord that no one knows who runs our game. And that makes me laugh inside. Second, he said that if somebody asked if anything needs to be changed in Dota right now, what is it? And the answer was runes and bottle fills. They need to be fixed. Seems pretty logical to me. He didn't go into detail, but I think that of all the things in the game right now that could maybe pick up a little bit of management, it is the way that runes work. The best question that was asked of him, in my opinion, is a viewer said, "Are you jealous of Ake's hair?" To which he simply replied, "Yes." And that made me laugh quite a lot, as well as "Are you wearing a hat right now?" Which was also yes. And finally, his favorite book of all time was the Wheel of Time series by Robert Jordan, which tells me a few things. If you haven't read it, it is I think it's 13 volumes at this point, a massive fantasy book series. Say what?
it's done. I read them all, like the stories ended.
That's right. It was, I believe, Robert Jordan passed away, so his son finished up the last one. Is that...
Well, not his son. It was actually what's his face? I forgot the name. Actually, I have the books in front of me. Brandon Sanderson.
Brandon Sanderson. Great series, though.
Yeah, it was definitely.
If you don't love Loda, you gotta love the fact that he loves some of the best fantasy literature out there. So if you haven't read Wheel of Time, do it. Free plug for you, Mr. Jordan's estate. And now we'll move into talking a little bit about the guest spot as we kind of get to the end of the show, guys. Like I said, I was going to ask about being a woman in esports, but I think it's been covered. So what I really want to ask you about, and this is something that I've been curious about, that I think a lot of our viewers probably are, is what it's like to be a streamer. So I know that you stream a lot. You stream up to 11 hours a day, and that's not necessarily counting the casting that you do. That's sort of you with fans doing games and talking to them and just being on camera. What is it like to be a professional streamer?
Well, it's for me. I prefer, like, I am in Dota to be a commentator, a host, and an interviewer.
Mm-hmm.
So kind of a professional streamer for me is a second choice, but I kind of need to do it because otherwise I won't have any income.
Right.
If I'm home, which is normally all the time, and if I'm not casting, I'm playing Dota or I'm watching Dota. And when playing Dota, I might as well have the stream on. So I stream about 12 to 14 hours a day, or at least I have been doing that in August. It's a bit less this week so far due to various reasons, but it's it can be very tiresome. You have to be like you of course you're there all the time. You have to be making sure that you get food,
Right.
because you might forget that if you sit in front of your computer all the time. And overall, it's just it's fun though. I mean,
So
you're playing games, right? So
you're playing games
yeah.
I'm playing games for a living. Can't argue with that. You did say that it can be tiring, and we'll use that to jump to another question: is what are the biggest challenges? Is it just the tiring factor, or are there other things that make this a really challenging job?
Well, I also think that I can do 12 to 14 hours a day because I feel like I'm just me on my stream. Like I don't pretend to be extra happy, or I don't pretend to be like funny or whatever. I'm just me. So sometimes I'm grumpy. Actually, recently I've been grumpy a lot, but because I can be just me, I don't have to put that extra effort into it. So it's maybe less tiring than other people that might want to like, appear different in front of the camera.
I understand.
I guess that's one of the biggest things that might be like for people trying out streaming. That one of the biggest things that might be challenging, and it's just it's consistency. It's a challenge to just keep it up.
Excellent. Now let me ask you this then. It is when I read the article back in 2012. You said you had just left your quote unquote normal job and were looking for something different. What made you make the transition to this type of job from a more quote-unquote traditional job?
Well, it wasn't actually a transition. So I was looking for a job, and I actually looked for a normal job. And while I was looking for a normal job, I played Dota and I casted Dota, and I had a lot of free time, so I casted a lot of Dota. And then I realized that I could actually earn money with it, which I didn't know before, or at least didn't do before. And at some point, that made me not decide to try out casting and streaming more. It just made me less motivated to actually look for a normal job. So
I like it.
I actually like when you're like in my country, in the Netherlands, we have a pretty good social system.
Yeah.
So after I worked full time for 2.5 years, and then you have a right at like this amount of months for like unemployment money stuff. So
right.
You do have the obligation to still apply for jobs, which I still did as well. But I wasn't looking as hard anymore for a new job, and I kind of lived off the thing that the government gave me as long as possible. And I also had savings that I built up during working normal, because my job actually paid fairly well. Okay. And I lived off of that for a while, and actually some months I still have to, because not all months are as generous as others. So yeah, it just made me decide like I can try this out. Let's just try this out. It's not a conscious decision. It's like, okay, from this point onward, I'm not gonna do it as a job anymore, but I'm gonna do this as a job. I only started like my own company, quote unquote, in November last year. So. That was only because I started to get enough money to be forced to pay taxes. Right. And, unfortunately that makes me give up half of what I earn. But, I also was able to do what I love for a long time because of those taxes, I guess, because of other people paying their taxes.
Makes sense. And that's true. So that's a great way to look at it. So here's what I want to kind of wrap up the interview with, a couple of things real quick, is if one of your fans, and I think there's actually quite a few, are listening to the show, what do you want to tell them?
Wait, say again, what do I want to tell people about what?
If your fans, those guys, those people who join you on the stream every day, if they're watching the show, if they're listening to the podcast, and you have a chance to sort of address them, what do you want to tell them? If you met them on the street, what would you say?
Well, it's a good thing that I meet them on the stream every day, and I think they know this too. Like, without them, I couldn't be doing what I'm doing, so... I would say thank you.
Thank you. Simple. Yeah. I like it. Now let me ask.
It's just simple because you do what you love, and then yeah.
Well, and I'm sure they'd say thank you because they get to spend time seeing you do what you love, and that's a neat thing. Now, to the other group of people, what would you say to someone who's thinking about tuning into your stream or hasn't watched it in the past, and they listen to the show and they're like, "Oh, Shiver's streaming for the rest of the day. Maybe I should tune in." What would you say to those folks?
Well, come and hang out. I like to pride myself on the fact that I feel like my chat, my basically community that's around my stream, is very friendly and normal and just open for everybody that is also wanting to just hang out. Yesterday we spent some time on advising someone how to purchase I believe an engagement ring. Nice. So. And how to find the right size, and to get a ring from his girlfriend, and find it without her noticing and stuff like that. Like, I have a pretty good channel. So if you just want to hang out and relax, then you're welcome there. It's not like I'm extremely funny or something. I'm not sing. I'm also not entirely skilled in Dota, but I like to think I'm a good place to just hang out and have fun watching Dota.
Absolutely. So this life lessons and a good time. Great place to hang out. Check it out. Life lessons with Shiva, a new feature that will be coming to her stream potentially in the future. That said, I'm going to ask one more question. This one is a surprise. I didn't mention it at all to Shiva, so I'm going to bring this one up. And we're going to go to the G Sports article you did in 2012, okay? And that you were asked back then that the translation written out was a little bit rough, so I'm going to try to clean it up a little bit. But it said, we've seen teams disbanding or having their lineups changed. What do you think about these kinds of changes? And do they happen too often in esports? In 2012, you had a great answer, which I'm going to link to everybody in Twitch, and you can find it over on gsports.com. But what do you say now? How would you answer that question? I can repeat it for you. What do you think about all of these changes that are happening in lineups and disbanding teams? Do you think it's happening too often?
Not that much anymore. I mean, people are seeing the international now as the season finale, and it really feels like everybody lives towards that. So we kind of have a time where teams change right after the international and around December again if things didn't entirely work out. And I think sometimes change is needed for some teams, of course. As we also see, though, the teams that have the members that stick together longer were more successful in the past. Maybe for this international, not entirely true, but yeah, I think the scene is definitely maturing, and also the roster switches.
Yeah,
they're a bit more stabilized. They're still there, but like I said, they're like compartmented in sections of the year that make sense for making it to the international.
Yeah, it's starting to feel a little more like we're watching football or soccer, for those of you from my West Coast audiences, or my Western audiences, than it used to. It used to seem a little frenetic when it got to the trading phase or the post-TI shuffle, and I think now it's very organized. And for those of you who have your sound turned up really high, you're hearing my son, it's time for his changing. So in order to make you feel better about it, I brought a picture with me so that every time he cries on stream, I throw it up so that the cuteness overwhelms you all, and you can't be mad at me for having crying come through. That said, to wrap up the show, we always do a last feature, and that is picks of the day, guys. What games do we think that you should watch? Shivar, are there any games that you think, man, this is going to be a particularly good one to keep our eyes on today?
Well, I think that people will want to watch the ESL 1 qualifiers for New York. I mean, there's going to be Alliance versus Moscow 5 as one of the later games of today, which, you might think, oh, Alliance is going to take that easily, but Alliance hasn't been performing really well, and Moscow 5 has actually been doing quite nicely, and they're normally a team that is very enjoyable to watch because, well, they're just active. Even if they lose, they just make sure that you have a fun time watching them. So. They
really do.
So I think Alliance versus Moscow 5, I think, is my favorite.
Excellent, and I think that the two picks I want to put out today are Power Rangers versus Empire over on the Excellent Moscow Cup, simply because both teams are aggressive and like to do some early game aggressive play, so we should see some action out of that one. And the other big one is Team Empire versus Complexity over there as well. Only on the betting sites, the Team Empire is favored by like 85% over Complexity Gaming, which means that if you want to do a value bet on rares, that may be your go-to. So check out the stats on that one and consider it. So that's our picks for the day. Guys, I really appreciate you spending the morning with myself. Shiva, I appreciate you being here as well. If you want to catch the replays, it'll be on YouTube, it'll be on Twitch, it'll be on soundcloud.com/Toffees_Dota2. And then obviously, if you want to help fund the show, I've got to make the plug because we're trying to keep it going and make it better for you. Patreon.com/Toffees. You can donate $1 or do things like get some sweet coffee mugs. So check that out. Tomorrow, guys, we're going to be bright and early, back at our normal time, 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And we're going to be here with MSS, previously of Mouse Sports / Team Dog, who's on a bit of a hiatus right now, is going to come in and talk to us about transitioning to the pro scene and dealing with school at the same time. So it'll be a nice discussion. I encourage you guys to be here. Shivar, is there any parting thoughts that you have for folks before we head out for today?
No, thank you for having me. It was fun, and yeah, it was a fun show.
Awesome, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And right now, she's going to probably get some coffee and some other stuff. Make sure you eat, and then
I haven't had breakfast yet, so I'll do that first.
So she will eat, but After that, guys, head over to twitch.tv/Sheaver Gaming. She'll be streaming all day today. Like we said, you can get some life lessons and some really good information over there, so why not have it up? And for those of you who are listening right now and headed to work, just open the stream, leave it on, and do your thing. That said, guys, wonderful having you. My name is Toffees. As always, have a wonderful morning, a pleasant tomorrow, and as always, Toffees out.